My name is Monica Burns, and welcome to Technology Essentials and Education. On today's episode, I welcome Luke Straub, Content Director at Jotform, to chat about how teachers really feel about AI. Luke works on the education team at Jotform, where he connects with educators to learn about their pain points and share their stories through case studies on the Jotform blog. His team recently surveyed educators across the country to get a better sense of their AI anxiety, specifically for an AI anxiety in education research project. Luke and I actually caught up in real life, face to face, at a conference recently, and conversations about AI were happening all over that event. And I know today, as we unpack the survey data, you're going to get lots of insights and information that you can use in your practice and that you may want to dive into a bit deeper. Let's get into the conversation. This episode is brought to you by Jotform. Jotform provides an all-in-one solution to streamline administrative tasks, enhance community engagement, and foster innovation. Using their no-code drag-and-drop forms and workflows, your teams can securely collect and store data, automate tasks, and collaborate on team resources. Educational institutions are also eligible for a 30% discount on Jotform Enterprise. Head to their website to learn more. Jotform.com/enterprise/education. Welcome to the podcast. I'm so excited to chat with you today about how teachers really feel about AI, which is a big topic. But before we get into all of that, can you share a little bit with listeners? What is your role at Jotform? What does your day-to-day look like?
Yeah. Hey, Monica. Yeah, I'm on the content. I'm a content marketer on the education team at Jotform, and basically, I'd say my role is like adjacent to education. What we
Mm-hmm.
try to do is learn as much as we can about educators, what their pain points are, what they need to thrive on a day-to-day basis, and then we look at what we have. And as a content marketer, I create content that can help them out, help them save some time with our tools.
Yeah, and speaking of those pain points, I know you and I not too long ago saw each other at a conference in Orlando, right? Hearing from lots of educators on the ground, having those kind of quick conversations. But you all had a big survey, that you put out, which is another way to go. Sometimes beyond just a conversation where someone might be a little hesitant to share, or you might feel a certain way about asking too many questions. Jotform had a survey. They surveyed 70 US educators about their feelings towards AI in education. And before we get into what you heard, what inspired your team to conduct this research?
Well, yeah, you mentioned it is like another way to keeping that line of communication open, right?
Hmm.
Something I should have mentioned off the top is another thing that's on my day to day is I get to talk to educators,
Hmm.
see, for to prepare case studies for our blog. So this is another part of that, just keeping that line of communication open. And so like I said, we want to learn about where their bottlenecks are and their workflows,
Hmm.
and they can get more done. And as you know, we already did a project, EdTech Trends 2026,
Hmm.
and
Yes.
that covered like a wide range of issues. Very insightful. We learned a lot, but AI was only one part of that project.
Yeah.
So we wanted to dive further into that, and we also wanted to talk to more educators. We talked to more administrators in this
Mhm.
survey. We talked to more support staff in this survey, and that definitely gave us a lot of great insight that we're definitely going to dive into pretty shortly.
Yeah.
But something else that inspired me is, like I mentioned, I talk to educators, and
Hmm.
every time AI comes up, it's like they're very excited about one aspect of AI.
Hmm.
They are like, "Look, I can get more done, outside of the classroom,
Yeah.
administration," and they're like super stoked about it. And then when the topic turns to students using AI, it's like a completely different vibe.
Hmm.
So that was another part of the inspiration. We really wanted to dive into that and really figure out what's going on there.
Yeah, and that's such a great point about, that you can hear a lot of different things on one topic, right? When you're having a conversation with someone. And I think it can be hard, to um, just to make someone comfortable sharing kind of all their feelings, right? Even if it might feel contradictory for them, right? They might
Right.
not be quite sure how to share that with someone that they're talking to. And so, that's one of the reasons why I think your survey and, survey data is so interesting, is because it really affords this opportunity for someone to tell a bigger picture, about their experiences. And one of the standout findings is that 84% of teachers worry AI could erode students' skills. Can you tell us a little bit more about what educators shared around that specific concern?
Yeah, that was by far the number one concern. I mean, across all levels. I mentioned we talked to multiple people. We talked to or multiple, roles as
Yeah.
far as
Hmm.
classroom teachers, college professors. So we're talking to educators as well as administrators and
Yeah.
support staff. We're talking to educators that are dealing with that are teaching children, not only K to 12, but grade school level. We're
Hmm.
talking to professors who deal with adult students.
Yeah.
And across all measures, yeah, that was the number one concern, that AI really has a kind of scary possibility. I mean, it's
Hmm.
pretty wild to think about. But, when you look at what we all know these LLMs are capable of, if you give ChatGPT to a student, like what kind of can of worms that can open as far as
Hmm.
actual erosion of student skills, which is very concerning for all teachers, the vast majority of teachers, like you said, 84%. But a couple of comments I did want to share is
Yeah.
because you said this is like, this is good stuff here as far as
Hmm.
insights. One educator said it's taken away the opportunity for students to learn through struggle.
Hmm.
And that I mean, I got more comments, but I mean that encapsulates a lot of it.
Yeah.
It's like teachers, and I'm kind of jumping ahead a little bit here, but
Hmm.
teachers are very excited about the possibility for AI to handle stuff, take stuff off their work plate.
Yeah.
But uh, the actual learning, that's a completely different story.
Yeah.
Uh, Another comment, the over reliance on AI is causing students to be incurious and addicted to performing at the lowest level. Now, that's got to be crushing for an educator who their passion is
Yeah.
to raise these students' level of knowledge and ability.
Hmm.
Another comment is students need to try to be okay with the idea of trying, and is the key way to grow and mature. Outcomes, the paper itself are never the point. We desperately need thinkers, end quote. That comment did kind of make me laugh a little bit because as a student, I'm like, okay, I do want a good result on the paper. But of course, that's
Right.
not the point. The point
Right.
is
Hmm.
you need to do what you can do from your own experience, your own brain, frankly,
Hmm.
and improve.
Yeah.
And there is the real concern here that there's going to be no improvement. It's just going to be, okay, you're going to have a machine think for you and you're not going to develop. And that's got to be, like I said, crushing for a teacher when they're only, their passion,
Hmm.
not their only, their passion
Right.
is to do is not the exact opposite of that. So it's easy to understand these concerns, taking all that into consideration.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really interesting even how you framed that, because so many of the educators I work with, are having similar concerns. And at the secondary level, right, they might see that in their day to day, right? They're, watching a student who might pop a question into a chatbot and go from A to Z without any kind of pausing, right, in between. But then you
Yeah.
also have a second or third grade teacher whose students might not have, right, these tools in front of them, but they're concerned about what's just ahead of them, right, a couple years later. And
Yeah.
they understand that this is a pathway, right, that they may be approaching. So, for a lot of educators, that concern around that over reliance, I think, is one of the words that you use, right? And students not having a sense of curiosity, right, is, of course, right, a concern when
Yeah.
you watch what an AI chatbot can do, right, when it's posed with a pretty big question or a big task in front of it. And at the same time, I know your survey result asked many different questions, right? Nearly 2 in 3 educators don't expect AI to reduce the need for teachers anytime soon. And, it's kind of interesting to have both of those data points, right next to each other. So how do you make sense of these two findings?
Yeah, this survey is really great because it kind of all works together. It kind of like there's a bunch of pieces to it, and the more you look at it, and the more the more I've read the report and
Yeah.
digested what's in there. I'm like, okay, this is like a bunch of puzzle pieces that kind of fit together a little bit. And teachers and educators don't think that AI is going to take jobs away because they understand
Yeah.
that AI cannot do their job.
Mhm.
They just can't. Like we're just talking about, like, an LLM is they can, we all know they have their benefits, but as far
Mhm.
as someone learning and progressing, fine tuning their critical thinking skills, and everything that goes along with that, teachers know that AI can't do that for them.
Yeah. Mhm.
And if that ever happens, we're a long way from that. Who knows what the future holds, but at the moment, definitely teachers are not concerned at all. And something I thought that was interesting is when we asked teachers overall, do you believe AI will make the education profession stronger or weaker? 33% of overall educators said AI will make the education profession slightly stronger. So, and that was the highest number we had. It was a little bit of a mixed bag there. It was actually kind of
Mhm.
split like in four different quadrants as far as, slightly stronger, slightly weaker. Of course, we have some educators who are very concerned and
Yeah.
the like, but the majority thought, or the highest percentage thought that AI could make their profession slightly stronger. So not only are they not worried about losing their job, many of them are, cautiously optimistic or even cautiously excited about what AI can do for them. Of course, yeah, at Jotform, we like to save teachers time, and teachers are
Right.
saying the same thing with AI and the possibilities there. So not only are they not worried that they know that their job cannot be taken by AI,
Yeah.
and they also know that it can help them. So that's where you get many educators saying that their professions are become slightly stronger because of all this. But there's still a lot to get through as far as how it's implemented and all of that.
Yeah, and I think, that's a really important piece for people to take into consideration while they're unpacking these survey results is that you can have educators, right, holding on to a lot of different feelings about a big topic at the same time, and they're not necessarily contradicting one another either. And I think, that really gets to a piece I wanted to ask you about that overall, right, looking at all the survey data, the
Mhm.
biggest fear among educators isn't their job loss, like we talked about. It really is around that critical thinking, that learning loss. And can
Yes.
you unpack a bit, what that looks like in some of the responses you received?
Yeah. One educator said something that I thought, I shouldn't say whether I agree with it, but I think it makes sense.
Hmm.
One teacher said that AI has no use at all for students below seventh grade. Basically the sentiment is that the more fundamental the learning task, the less AI should be involved. Another educator said students don't know the steps in the process to figure something out.
Hmm.
They just ask and expect the answer, which
Yeah.
negates the foundational knowledge and its neural scaffolding needed to be able to perform higher level thinking and tasks. This will lead to a dearth in our ability to innovate and create further complacency. So yeah, once again, it's like this kind of goes to the closer the teacher is to the classroom and seeing the impact that AI can have, the more concern that they really have.
Yeah.
And the learning loss is, like I said, you put that with the cautious optimism as far as AI and administration. I have one comment from a teacher that said, you know, AI only really supports learning, planning, and administrative tasks, which are an insignificant part of teachers' workday, and honestly just makes it so I'm working less outside of contract
Right.
hours, which could actually lead to more teacher retention, is what this educator said. So you really have this, like I said, the puzzle pieces all fit together pretty clearly.
Right.
It's almost like you have like educators, they know the power of AI, and they're dealing with adult students, of course, with as far as professors go. But in general, it's kind of like, okay, students, you're not ready for this yet. You're just not ready. Of course, use it if you want to like plan your vacation or something, but
Mhm.
you're just not quite there yet. And it is a little bit like, okay, the people that have already done, and I don't think educators are looking down like in a generation. Like it just
Right.
the matter of fact is that teachers had to struggle to learn,
Yeah.
which is what they want their students to do.
Right.
It's a simple ask. It's going to make the students' lives better. It's going to make society better, which is what teachers want to do. So yeah, it's definitely it's
A quick note from the presenter of today's episode, Jotform. Jotform lets you build a form in minutes. Student survey forms, homework submission forms, online quizzes, and so much more. You can start from scratch, or if you want to get a head start, check out their collection of free form templates designed with teachers, schools, and districts in mind. Learn more about Jotform and how educational institutions can get 30% discount on Jotform Enterprise. Head to their website to learn more. Jotform.com/enterprise/education.
all the pieces fit together as far as that goes.
Yeah, and just the different roles that someone might have, I think also impacts their feelings because they're
Yes,
seeing different things, right? And they're hearing different
absolutely.
things. And the data that you collected shows that classroom teachers, right, tend to be the most cautious about AI, while administrators and even college faculty
Mhm.
lean a bit more optimistic. Why do you think there's that gap between these roles in the data?
Well, first of all, before we get to a little bit of data, like definitely when I talk to educators that are saving time with AI,
Mhm.
yeah, they're so excited about it. But as far as the data goes, 48% of administrators and 55% of college faculty reported feeling optimistic about AI. But on the other hand, in the K through 12, 50% of high school teachers reported feeling anxious about AI. So what you have here is you've got administrators like kind of like, all right, let's go. We want to save time. We want to be more productive so we can concentrate on the big picture ideas. How to move their campus forward. They don't want to be mired in administrative tasks.
Mhm.
Nobody does, and that includes teachers. They're more than willing, or at least willing to try automating some in class processes, simple stuff like permission slips or something like that. Maybe
Yeah.
creating a form really quickly with AI. But the closer you are to the classroom, you see the impact.
Yeah.
You see these students, like educators told us in the survey, that are just looking at students and projecting forward into the future. That's something I give educators a lot of credit for. They're not just worried about what's going on in their classroom at that moment or during that classroom period. They have legit concerns that impact more than just their classroom. So that's the closer they get, the more they see how AI is impacting the student.
Yeah.
The further away they are, the more they see the benefits of how it impacts the school in a positive fashion, where you can
Mhm.
just get more done. And school administration, I mean, that's one of the biggest, obviously, pain points in education there is. So that's if AI can help solve that, they're all for it. And the further away from the classroom you are, the less you have to worry about that impact in the classroom.
Right, you're just kind of seeing different things throughout the day, and it's interesting. One of the things that your survey found was that newer teachers or early
Mhm.
career educators, we could call them, that 82% of that group say that they avoid AI due to fear of potential consequences, which might be the opposite of what someone would think when they say, like, oh, a younger person or newer to a field may be more energized on trying something, right? But that wasn't the case from the data you collected. What stood out for you when it comes to this group and how they responded?
Yeah, that really surprised us. No lie.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like, but you know, when you think about what the position they're in, you know, um, they are less tenured.
Yeah.
They are a little bit more concerned about maybe appearances.
Hmm.
Maybe I just kind of addressed the issue of the generational gap a little bit,
Yeah. Hmm.
and it's kind of similar in that fashion. So they don't want to use AI incorrectly. They don't want to perhaps impact their reputation in some sort of way. And nobody really, I think it really goes to the fact that they're just that they just need guidance.
Yeah.
All these, and this mixed bag of emotions and feeling and opinions, more like it really does come back to guidance, and everyone's getting the same level of guidance or lack thereof. But when you have someone that's just new to teaching and there's all this uncertainty swirling around, like, yeah, they're gonna kind of go back to they're gonna kind of retreat a little bit, is what we found. So yeah, very, very surprising. But
Hmm.
when you think about the world of education, it does make a little bit of sense.
Yeah, I think at first glance, there's definitely that are you sure? Right? And then as like you said, you unpack it a bit, some of the things that they are facing when it comes to navigating, right, a new role, a new, space that they're inhabiting, right? All the different decisions that they have to make are all new to them. When I was having conversations about tech integration without, the AI piece 10, 15 years ago, with educators, a lot of times the thought on the outside is that, oh, the new teachers love all the computers and the
Hmm.
laptops and the iPad and the Chromebooks. When really I found a lot of the veteran teachers had the context to say, this is going to change my ecosystem lesson that I've done for 20
Yeah.
years now that we can do this project. Or, I, have this opportunity. I have the classroom management confidence, right? That I can bring all
Yes.
these iPads out into my classroom and not worry about everyone
Yeah.
going crazy, right? With something new. So it is really one of those things that when you take a step back, you say, oh, that really does make sense, right? That does
Right.
make
Yeah.
sense that is why, that group might respond that way. And you mentioned or you alluded to just the policy piece or the
Hmm.
guidelines, and
Yep.
when someone's not sure of their guidelines, that might also make them a little hesitant. And
Yes.
so the survey also found that having a formal AI policy in place doesn't necessarily ease
Yeah.
educator anxiety. What do you think that tells us about what teachers actually need?
Well, I think first of all, it tells us that, a policy is a good start,
Mhm.
but that's just a start.
Yeah,
It really just is. It's like a lot of this is just starting, right? I mean, you can put a bunch of, guidelines on a piece of paper, but really, honestly, if you didn't really have a consensus about how AI should be used or could be used in the classroom, you don't really come together and make that policy kind of like a holistic experience where everybody is involved,
yeah,
and everybody gets to have their say, and there really maybe even a conversation before you write that policy,
right.
a little bit of like, okay, this really is okay, and there's room for new ideas. We can change our policy. So yeah, it's just a start. The training gives them the confidence,
Yeah,
to be able to be like, okay, I know this is how we have all decided that AI is this is a great way to use AI. We've all decided this. I have the complete confidence to move forward and use AI in this fashion. When, I mean, just thinking about if I got a piece of paper that told me how to use AI, I'm like, okay, there's like a million ways to do this. Like,
right.
are we sure? Are we sure I can't do this? Are we sure I can't do that? I really think it all demands a conversation amongst, I mean, everyone on campus, dang near,
Hmm.
as far as, to not only have a policy, but have a training in place and really make sure that teachers and educators know that we've all agreed this is a good way to go, and that's going to help those young teachers too, especially.
Right, just to give them that guideline, the sense of community around something new.
Hmm.
And the survey data found that administrative tasks, lesson planning, right, grading and feedback were
Yeah.
all things where educators were most open to using AI. So when it comes to that information, I would love to unpack a bit, on what Jotform AI can do, right? So, can you tell
Yeah.
us a bit about how Jotform AI supports the planning and preparation teachers do on a regular basis?
Right. And I mentioned like the puzzle pieces all fitting together. I mean, this is great news because I feel like we can help a lot of educators,
Good.
because we see Jotform AI as a productivity tool. And you mentioned ISTE, we're both at ISTE.
Yeah.
There's a lot of awesome products out there that are, student facing products. And that's not what we are necessarily. We're more, we will definitely, you can create a form very quickly,
Yeah.
and that can be in front of a student, but we're more data collection,
Hmm.
administration. I mean, streamlining administration as far as registration, enrollment, managing approvals like for internal requests, permission slip handling, organizing signups for extracurricular activities,
Hmm.
following up with parents, scheduling parent-teacher conferences, and teachers as well in classroom. There are some forms that can be in front of students. Quizzes. You can create quizzes. You can grade quizzes very easily. Student surveys, exit kind of polls or pulse checks as far as to maybe adding to an individual learning plan.
Hmm.
So, some of these are in front of students, but at the end of the day,
Right.
it's helping save teachers and educators time.
Yeah.
And the AI tools, I have to say that we have, like I mentioned at the top, I do create you can check out our YouTube page at
Hmm.
Tech Trends. I know we're going to get to that, but
Yeah.
I'll plug it early. When I make a video, I have to create a form, right? I
Yeah.
have to display the form I'm creating. I'm creating a whole workflow. Um, it takes me a much shorter amount of time to create my videos now because I just use Jotform AI to spin up a quick form,
Hmm.
fill it out, and display the table. So it's just kind of a perfect. We really like what we learned from the data,
Yeah.
because we really feel like we can help.
Oh, absolutely. And I think for, anyone who's listening who is taking the data and now putting it into action, right? They could absolutely see the connections to what, is possible with Jotform AI, right? In particular, like you said, to
Yeah,
quickly build some of these pieces that are really running behind the scenes. And, for a teacher or a school leader who's listening and wants to dig into this data, where can they find the full report and learn more about Jotform's work in education?
absolutely. On our blog, jotform.com/blog, and you can search for AI, anxiety, and education. You can also search for my name, Luke Straub. That article will come right up.
Perfect. And so, Luke, this has been such a great conversation to unpack the data, which, might feel intimidating for someone who hasn't, right, gone through a survey data, right? You did all the heavy lifting in terms of finding the stories and finding this information and pulling it together for people to explore. So, where can people connect with you? Where can they learn more about your work?
Right, absolutely. You can click on my name on the article. I wrote the AI anxiety report, so you can click on my name and get to my contact form that way. Also, you can get to the contact form at the end of the blog post. Also, definitely check out. I already plugged our YouTube channel.
Mhm.
Check out Jotform EdTech. Got all kinds of tutorials and also more insight from the EdTech Trends 2026 report, which is a lot of good information there. So yeah, that's where to check it out.
Perfect. So this has been wonderful, Luke. Thank you so much for taking everyone right through this information and through, some next steps for them to consider as they're diving in.
Happy to do it. I had a great time.
It was lots of fun chatting with Luke today for this episode. If you want more information about the survey, make sure to head over to the Jotform blog. There's oodles of resources there above and beyond the survey data. So you will definitely find some things that you can dig into. Now, let's finish up this episode like we always do with a few key takeaways. First, use surveys and quick forms to gather honest feedback from your school community related to a big topic like AI in education. Remember that educators can hold different feelings about AI at the same time, like excitement about time savings and concern about the impact to student learning. Check in with your new early career teachers about their feelings and thoughts around AI. Many of them may avoid it out of fear of consequences and need clear guidance the most. Explore Jotform AI to speed up form creation, whether that's permission slips, quizzes, signups, you name it, and you can dig into the full AI anxiety and education report on the Jotform blog. A big thank you to Jotform, the presenter of today's episode. To learn more about Jotform and how educational institutions can get a 30% discount on Jotform Enterprise, head to jotform.com/enterprise/education.